Right now, there are 100,000 TikTok videos or Instagram videos telling you to lower your cortisol. Drink the cocktail, take the supplement, cut the coffee, skip the high intensity interval training. And here's the problem with all of it: cortisol is not the bad guy, cortisol is not your enemy. And so trying to lower it without understanding why it's high in the first place is like unplugging the smoke alarm because the kitchen's on fire. So, today I'm going to tell you what's actually happening and what to do instead. Welcome to Becoming Arketype, where we explore the science and strategy of natural health optimization and performance so that you can achieve your ideal self. I am Dr. Ryan Sousley. Okay. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Sousley, chiropractor, functional medicine practitioner, owner of Arketype Health with clinics in Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls, Idaho. Listen, if you've spent any time on social media lately, you know that cortisol has become the boogeyman of wellness. Influencers are blaming it for everything: belly fat, puffy face, brain fog, bad sleep, even anxiety, sugar cravings. And the fix, supposedly, is some combination of an orange juice and sea salt cocktail or an ashwagandha capsule, a walking routine, quitting your morning coffee. And look, I get the appeal. It's simple and it's actionable, and some of those things do work. And you can do these things right away. The problem is it doesn't fix the underlying cause of why cortisol is high in the first place. It's incomplete. And so people end up chasing this number while completely missing what's actually broken. So I want to clean this up. And by the end of the episode, you're going to understand what cortisol actually does in your body, why it gets stuck high, and then the real lever that almost nobody is talking about. So here's what most people believe. They believe that cortisol is essentially a toxin. They've been told that high cortisol makes them fat, it makes them tired, it makes them puffy, and it shortens their lifespan because it's your stress hormone, and stress is bad for you, right? So if the goal just becomes to lower it, to crush it, to get rid of it, and that's all we do, we're missing a big foundational piece of the puzzle. Cortisol is one of the most essential hormones in your body. Without cortisol, you don't wake up in the morning. Without cortisol, you can't regulate blood sugar. Without cortisol, you can't control inflammation. Without cortisol, your blood pressure crashes and you go into shock. So people with no cortisol, and that is a condition, by the way, it's called Addison's disease, they don't get to have a wellness debate. They take cortisol every single day just to stay alive. So listen, cortisol is not the enemy. And here's the reframe. And this is the piece that I want you to really understand and sit with. Chronically elevated cortisol is a result. It's not a cause. When your cortisol is stuck high, what that's telling you is that your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight mode or sympathetic dominance. It's your stress response, and it's not able to drop back down into rest and digest mode the way that it's supposed to, into parasympathetic mode. So listen, cortisol is the smoke. Sympathetic dominance is the fire. And no cortisol cocktail in the world is going to put out a fire by addressing the smoke. So that's why so many people have been doing all the right things, taking magnesium, breath work, cold plunge, even taking ashwagandha. But they're still puffy. They're still waking up at 3 a.m. They're still carrying weight around their midsection. And it's because they're treating the wrong thing. And I'm not against those things. I do a lot of those things personally as well. But if you're not addressing the underlying cause of the problem, you're going to be addressing the symptoms, even if it's natural, for the rest of your life. So let's talk about what's really happening. And to do that, I'm going to walk you through 4 root causes of why your nervous system gets stuck on in the first place. Because once you understand that, the path forward becomes a lot more clear. And the first one is structural. And this is the piece that I think almost nobody in the cortisol conversation is talking about, which is wild to me because it's the foundation. And here's what I mean. Your brain talks to your body through your nervous system. Your nervous system runs through your spine. And the part of the nervous system that controls the stress response, that decides whether you're in fight or flight or rest and digest, it's called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system has 2 branches: sympathetic, which is like the gas pedal, and then parasympathetic, which is like the brake pedal. And you need both, right? The brake pedal, though, is run primarily by one nerve, and it's called the vagus nerve. It's the longest nerve in your body, and it actually originates from the brainstem and then exits through the upper cervical part of your spine, which is the top of your neck. So think about what that means. The brake pedal on your entire stress response runs through the upper part of your neck. So when there's structural interference at that level, which happens to a lot of us just by living life, right? Like through chronic cell phone use, posture, sports injuries, car accidents, slips, trips, and falls, for a lot of people, even the birth process. But when there's interference at that level, the signal that's supposed to tell your body to calm down doesn't get through that pathway cleanly. And it's kind of like a cell phone signal with bad reception. You know, the call still happens. You're trying to talk, but the message is getting garbled. And so the body never actually gets the signal to drop back into parasympathetic mode. It stays revved up. The gas pedal stays pressed to the floor, and your cortisol stays elevated with it. And this is why in my clinics, we evaluate the upper cervical spine on every single patient that walks in with chronic stress symptoms, not because chiropractic is the answer to every problem, but because if you don't check the structural integrity of the system that runs the brake pedal, you're guessing at everything else. You know, you can take all the ashwagandha you want, but if your vagal pathway is compromised, you're trying to solve a hardware problem with software updates. Okay, the second root cause is nutritional. And this one's huge because most of what people are calling stress is actually a fuel problem in disguise. So here's the analogy. Your blood sugar is like a thermostat. When it drops too low, your body doesn't just shrug it off, it panics because your brain runs on sugar, on glucose. And a low blood sugar event is a survival emergency in your body. So what does the body do? Well, it releases cortisol. Cortisol's job in that moment is to pull glucose out of storage and bring blood sugar back up. That's what it's designed to do. It's brilliant. It's intelligent. Now think about what most people are doing. They wake up, they skip breakfast, or they have a bagel and coffee, and their blood sugar spikes and then crashes by 10:30 in the morning. They eat a sandwich and chips for lunch, spike. They have another coffee at 3 because they're crashing again, more cortisol. And then they get home and they have a glass of wine and they eat a late dinner and then they go to bed at 11 or midnight. And then by 4 in the morning, their blood sugar dips and cortisol comes flooding in to rescue it. That's not anxiety. That's a metabolic emergency that you're trying to sleep through. So when someone tells me they're stressed, the first thing I look at after the structural piece is their fuel, their nutrition. Are they eating protein within 30 minutes of waking up? Are they having caffeine on an empty stomach, which forces cortisol to spike before the body's even ready? Are they low in magnesium, which is one of the single most depleted minerals in our modern diet and is absolutely critical for the body's ability to wind down, which is why most people benefit from taking it at night. You know, another question is, are they low in B vitamins, which are required to make energy out of food in the first place? Most of what people call chronic stress at the root is a body that doesn't have all the raw materials that it needs to regulate itself properly. Okay, the third root cause is metabolic. And here's where the loop gets a little ugly because chronic high cortisol drives insulin resistance, and insulin resistance drives visceral fat. That's the deep belly fat that wraps around your organs. And visceral fat is not just sitting there. Visceral fat is actually metabolically active. It secretes inflammatory signals. This is wild. It secretes inflammatory signals into your bloodstream all day long. And inflammation on a physiological level is a stressor. And then the body has to respond to it. And how does it do that? Well, with more cortisol. So now you're in this loop. Cortisol drives insulin resistance. Insulin resistance drives visceral fat. Visceral fat drives inflammation. Inflammation drives cortisol, and around we go. And this is why so many people feel stuck and why they get frustrated, even though they think they're doing all the right things. So this is why cortisol belly is real, even though cortisol face is most of what's floating around on the internet right now. The face thing, the puffiness that people are obsessing over, that's mostly water retention from poor sleep, high sodium, and a glass of wine before bed, right? I mean, cortisol face is not a clinical diagnosis. There is a real medical condition called Cushing's syndrome, where cortisol is genuinely pathologically elevated. And that does cause facial changes, but Cushing's is really rare and usually caused by a tumor or long-time steroid medication use. Most people on social media don't have Cushing's. They have a feedback loop that they're stuck in. But the belly piece, that's a different story. So the midsection weight that won't leave or won't move no matter what you do, the inability to lose fat in spite of good food choices, the body that seems to hold on to everything, that's the metabolic loop in action that we're talking about today. And so here's what I want you to understand. You cannot diet your way out of a hormonal feedback loop. You can't exercise your way out of a hormonal feedback loop. You have to interrupt the loop itself. And that means addressing the inflammation, the insulin signaling, and the nervous system interference that is keeping everything in motion. And then the fourth root cause is toxic. And by toxic, I don't mean detox tea and parasites and the kind of stuff that gets sold on Instagram. I mean chronic low-grade exposures that your body is responding to 24 hours a day without you ever feeling it. Think about it like a phone running 50 apps in the background. You know, your screen on the front looks fine. You're scrolling and the phone seems normal, but the battery is draining at 3 times the rate that it should. Why? Because the system's working overtime in the background. And that's what your nervous system is doing in our modern world today. For most people, ultra-processed foods are a stressor. Poor sleep is a stressor. Alcohol is a stressor. Plastic exposures and endocrine disruptors that we're exposed to every day, those are stressors. Constant phone notifications are a stressor. I know, you and me both. News and social media, stressors. Each one of these things is a low-grade input that your nervous system has to respond to. And when you stack 10 or 15 of them up all at once, every day, all day long, your body never gets to leave fight or flight mode, sympathetic dominance. So you're not stressed out in the way that people usually mean it. You're not running from a bear in the woods. You're not screaming at your kids all day long, hopefully. You don't feel anxious all the time, hopefully. But your physiology is in a constant low volume sympathetic state. And cortisol is the readout or the outcome. So this is why just simply removing inputs is more powerful than adding interventions. In fact, in my 15 plus years experience of chiropractic and functional health, in my opinion, most of the time, removing things is more beneficial than adding things when it comes to your health, at least as a starting point. So, you know, the body wants to regulate itself. It's designed to regulate itself. You're designed to heal. And most of the time, we don't have to teach the body what to do to calm down. We just have to stop poking it so that it can do what it's designed to do. About a year ago, I had a patient named Sarah. She's 42 years old. She's a high-performing professional, 2 kids, and she came in with back pain. But during her exam, she described the picture that I see almost every week, if not every day now. Puffiness in the face, 12 pounds of midsection weight that she couldn't get off no matter what. She's waking up at 3 a.m., unable to fall back asleep. And she had what she called wired and tired all day, which means she was tired during the day, but then wired at night. So it was like her energy system was flipped upside down. And her cortisol panel showed elevated evening levels and a flattened morning curve. So basically the inverse of what it should be. And then on our structural exam, she had significant upper cervical and upper thoracic findings consistent with the sympathetic dominance pattern that I was talking about earlier. So she basically had spine issues, spinal subluxations or misalignments in her neck and her upper back, the part of the nervous system that helps control and regulate sympathetic and parasympathetic balance. So I put her on a care plan, structural correction, magnesium glycinate at night, a protein-anchored breakfast within 30 minutes of waking, 9 p.m. cutoffs on screens, which is harder than it sounds, I know. And we didn't add a single supplement to lower her cortisol specifically, but within 60 days, she was sleeping through the night. The puffiness in her face was gone. She was down 8 pounds without touching her exercise routine. She was just doing the same thing she always had. She didn't lower her cortisol with a cocktail. We got the nervous system unstuck, and then her cortisol regulated itself. And that's the whole point. That's what I'm talking about when I say remove things first and let your body try to do what it's created to do. Then if we need to add things to give it some help, then we can. So let me talk about what you can actually do. And I'm going to give you 3 things ranked in order of leverage, meaning the first one is the most impactful, second, third. So the first thing is to get your spine and nervous system checked structurally. And I know how that sounds coming from a chiropractor, but I want you to think about the logic of what we just covered. The brake pedal on your entire nervous system, your stress response, is the parasympathetic nervous system and its vagal tone, and it runs through your upper cervical spine and comes out of your brainstem. So if there's structural interference at that level, there's no supplement, no cocktail, no breathwork app that's going to fix that. You're trying to solve a hardware problem with software updates. So whether it's in one of our clinics or somewhere else that does corrective care and takes x-rays, I would highly recommend get the structural piece checked. It's the missing first step in almost every cortisol conversation that I have with patients. The second thing is to anchor your blood sugar. And most of what people experience is anxiety or irritability or mid-afternoon crashes, 4 a.m. wake-ups. Most of that is a metabolic event. It's not a psychological one. And 3 things make a massive difference here. Number 1, eat protein within 30 minutes of waking up. 20 to 30 grams. And this could be eggs, leftover chicken, a clean protein shake, whatever works for you. But this single change drops cortisol noise in your body more than almost any supplement on the market. Number 2, don't drink coffee on an empty stomach. And I'm not telling you to quit caffeine. And I know this is not the easiest thing because most of us want to have our morning coffee. What I am telling you to do is try putting some food into your body first, because caffeine on an empty stomach forces a cortisol spike that you don't necessarily need or that your body is not necessarily ready for. And then number 3, magnesium glycinate. And there are many different forms of magnesium, so glycinate is important here. But do magnesium glycinate at night. And I would personally recommend 300 to 400 milligrams. Everybody might be a little bit different, but magnesium is one of the most depleted minerals in our modern diet today. But it's critical for the body's ability to shift into parasympathetic mode. And most people just aren't getting enough. And then the third thing is to regulate your inputs. And by inputs, I mean the things that are going into your nervous system every day, which is light, food, screens, information, alcohol, all of it. So 3 quick wins. Get sunlight on your face within 30 minutes of waking up. This sets your circadian rhythm. It also tells your cortisol curve to peak in the morning where it's supposed to, instead of staying elevated in the evening where it should be low. Get phones off the bedside table. Just don't put them on your nightstand whatsoever. The presence of the phone alone, even on silent, raises baseline arousal during sleep. They actually have studies that have shown this. Next one, get 20 minutes of outside daily movement, walking or riding a bike, preferably while you're not on your phone. Take your earbuds out, leave your phone in your car or in your house, but get outside for 20 minutes a day and just get some movement. Notice that none of these are about lowering cortisol directly. Every one of them is about giving your nervous system a chance to do what it's already designed to do, which is to regulate itself. I think we get into a lot of trouble where when we try to force the body to do one thing or another, even if we think it's good for us. What we want to do is we want to remove interferences so that our body can do what it's already created to do. So here's where I want this to land. If you've been doing the cortisol cocktails and the supplements and the breathwork apps and you're still tired, which again, I'm not against any of those things, but maybe you're doing all this stuff and you're still tired. You're still puffy. You're still waking up at 3 in the morning. You're still carrying weight around your midsection and it won't move no matter what you do. It's not because you haven't tried hard enough. This isn't a willpower issue, most likely. It's because you're treating the wrong thing. Cortisol is the smoke alarm. The fire, most likely, is the nervous system that's stuck on sympathetic mode or fight or flight, and it's not getting back to the rest and digest mode or parasympathetic. So get your foundation checked, anchor your fuel, regulate your inputs, and your body will do the rest. If you've been told that your labs are normal, but you don't feel normal, if your doctor has run the basic panels and just shrugged it off, if you've been chasing the wellness fix and that's not working, well, that's exactly the work that we do. And so if you want to learn more about what we do or visit us in one of our clinics, you can visit us at archetype.health. And then lastly, if this episode helped you, do me a favor, just share it. maybe with a friend who's been drinking the cortisol cocktails or trying all these wellness fixes and they just feel like they're stuck or frustrated. You just never know how much you sharing something like this might help or change someone's life in the future. And then last, leave us a review. It really does help this show find more people and hopefully help more people in the process. I'll talk to you next week.